Hey there guys. Now, I am assuming that you are on this video after seeing the introduction from earlier in this playlist. If you aren't here from that, however, let me give you a brief introduction on what we're doing. We are making a visual novel like the one you've seen here on screen right now. What you're seeing right now is a small demo I made. It's called A Tale of Two Cats using Unity, Inkle Studios Ink, and Cubism's Live 2D. Throughout the series, we will be covering how to get such a cool visual novel, and we'll also be covering how to build it in such a way that it's scalable. So, what I mean by this is this technology, this little visual novel tool that we'll be making in this series, will work for a short 5,000 word visual novel, and it'll work very well into a 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 word visual novel. With that being said, let's actually pop right into it. So we're going to go ahead and start off by creating a 2D Unity project. I'm going to go ahead and save it into a separate folder. Now, in my case, it's a folder called YouTube tutorials, and here I made a mistake because I did not realize I had a Unity tutorials folder. We're going to create a new folder, Unity Visual Novel Series, and save it. Name the project whatever you want. I'm going to call it YouTube Visual Novel. While this is recording, while the project is setting up, I'm going to go ahead and download my one of the essential SDKs, which in this case is Inkle Studios' Ink. Now you have two options. One, you could get the plugin but through the Unity App Store, and two, you could actually just get it directly through their GitHub. I prefer the GitHub method, but if you're going to go ahead and add it to your Unity account and use the package manager, go right ahead. But for the purpose of the tutorial, we are going to be using the Unity asset package. Now, once we're in Unity, we're going to go ahead and create a new scene. I'm going to call mine base scene, no, template scene. And now that we have a template scene, we're going to go ahead and start by setting up our scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a canvas, and we're going to add a raw image. Now this raw image is going to serve as our dialog box. So go ahead and resize it to the size you want. As you can see on screen right now, I am messing around with the size. Go ahead and mess around with the size and place it in the position you want. Once you have that down, just double check with the game view, make sure it looks just right. You can change it down the line, of course, it doesn't really matter, but I tend to want to work with my preview assets. Now go ahead and name this dialog box, because this is the image this is going to be the object that holds our image, our text. So now we're going to go ahead and create a TextMesh Pro text box. Now if you don't have TextMesh Pro installed on your PC, on your on your Unity project, you're gonna have to install it. So go ahead and do that. And once you're in, go ahead and add the text box. I'm gonna go ahead and change my text color to black, and there we go. Now what I'm gonna do is hop online and look for a good copy pasta, which it's like my Lorem Ipsum, but you know, in this case I use my copy pasta to kind of just see how the text would look. Now I'm gonna go ahead and find the Darth Plagueis copy pasta, because honestly it's my personal favorite. And I'm just gonna copy this bit. No, no, this bit. Yeah, just gonna copy paste that into the text box. Get that sizing just right, and take your time with it, because honestly, getting a result in your placeholder project, or at least with your placeholder assets, is important, because you get a good feel for what the final thing looks like. At least a decent feel for what it looks like. Not gonna comment on your way of handling assets and projects, because I'm not you. But to each their own. I'm going to go ahead and position mine right here. I like how it looks. And I'm going to go ahead and rename this to dialog text. Right, now that I have my dialog text, I'm going to go ahead and create a new text box, which is going to be called my my name tag. Yes. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this black so I can see the text, and I'm going to go ahead and fiddle with it to get it just right. I'm going to call it Emperor Palpatine. For those of you who have seen Star Wars Episode 3, which is honestly probably one of the better movies in the prequel trilogy. But yeah, those of you who haven't seen it, just should watch it. The prequel trilogy isn't as bad as people say it is, at least compared to the sequel trilogy. So do that information as me. But I'm gonna go ahead and go ahead and position this to make it look nice and just tweak. Go ahead and tweak your tweak your text box to fit your needs. Now, one thing is that the reason we're using TextMesh Pro over the standard text is because we can add tags inside the text in the text box itself, so that we can have things like bold, slant, like bold, italic, underline, without really much consequence down the line. Now, another thing we will be doing is adding the character portrait. So I'm just going to go ahead and go create a raw image and position it to where I want, and well, go ahead and resize it to the way you want, and we'll be all hunky dory. So now that I'm done, now that I'm done with this, it's time to start work. I like the way this looks. I really do like the way this looks. It's decent, and I'm gonna go ahead and import my ink SDK. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and drag that into Unity and drop it into the asset browser. Now you can actually go ahead and import this using assets and then custom Unity asset, custom Unity package. I recall, but this is honestly pretty easy. So just go ahead and import everything. Make sure that everything's selected, and once that's done importing, will be all good. Now, if you did not know it, you need the Inky editor, Inky, not Ink, Inky editor to edit InkScript. So I advise you to go ahead and download that. Now, on PC, just a quick tip is that you'd want to go to Unity and you'd want to have your InkScript. Go ahead and right click that. Go ahead and select Open With, and More Apps, scroll down to the very bottom and find the place where you've installed Inky. Now, this is not relevant at the moment, but for some reason, Melon Senpai in the editing booth thought that this was appropriate here, and I think it is. Go ahead and set the ink files to be opened with Inky. Now, once you have that done, we're going to go ahead and create a new script. The script, we're going to call it script reader. I initially want to call it script parser, but script reader seems a lot easier to understand. So those of you who are good at programming script parser, you can call it whatever you want, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Now, once we are in the script, we are going to go ahead and start scripting. Give it a second to load. There we are. So first off, I'm probably going to remove some of these comments. Or not. I'm going to go ahead and create. I'm going to actually use the namespaces. So we'll be using the Unity Engine.ui namespace, and the Unity Inc.runtime namespace, and the TM Pro namespace. Go ahead and copy that down the from the video. Of course, the code is up on GitHub. Oh, whatever, the code is up in the description somewhere. So do take a look there. Now, now we are going to go ahead and create two serialized fields. First, it's going to be a private text asset, which is going to be called underscore ink JSON asset. Next, we're going to go ahead and get a reference to our story folder, the script that holds the actual story. Now, how we can do this is we're just going to say private story underscore story. This is going to be using the ink.runtime, and well, honestly, that's pretty cool. The fact that we're using ink.runtime. Make sure that you have ink.runtime if I haven't mentioned already. Actually, let me make a quick change. I think I'll call it ink JSON file. You can call it whatever you want, but I think ink JSON file actually represents the asset a lot better. Now, make sure this is a serialized. Next, we're gonna get a reference to the two text boxes in our scene, which are our dialog box and our name tag. So go ahead and create a public tm pro underscore text dialog box. Make sure you put a semicolon there. go ahead and duplicate it using Control D and change it to change the name of the second one to name tag. Right. So now that we have our basic stuff set up, we're going to go ahead and start using these. All right. So we're going to go ahead and create a new method called void load story. Now we'll be using load story in the start method when we open up the scene to get everything in order. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and say underscore story script is equal to new story. Within brackets, you'd say underscore JSON file.txt. So we go ahead and take the story which we will be reading through in ink. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a new public method called display next line. Now we'll be using this to go ahead and to generate the actual text on screen. We're going to go ahead and say string text is equal to underscore story dot continue. So what this does is that it gets the next line and assigns it to a string called text. Next, we're going to go and take text and trim off any additional white space. So this is things like tabs and whatnot. So we're going to say is equal to text question mark dot trim with a capital T, the brackets and a semicolon. It's up on the screen, so go ahead and pause if you have to. Ooh, follow along. Next, finally, we're just going to go ahead and say dialog box dot text is equal to text, where we set the text in the dialog box to the text in text. Next, what if there is no script? What if there is no code left? What if there is nothing else to read? For that, we're just going to go ahead and say else dialog box dot text is equal to that's all, folks. What this does is that if we run out of lines, the text that's going to be read is that's all, folks. Right, so now we're just going to go into the start method and pull out load story. So for now, I'm just going to go and create a void update and say, and write a simple piece of code that pulls out that uses display next line every single time I hit enter. So that is done by going is if within brackets input dot get key down within brackets keycode dot space, then we say like the curly brackets, and you go ahead and say display next line. And so you say display next line, and that's the end of that. So now every single time you press space, we should change text. Let's go into Unity and check that out real quick. All right, so now we are in Unity, and we're actually going to go ahead and create a new game object. I'm going to call it Dialog Manager. And we're going to drag our script reader script into that. Should have been the first thing we did, but sometimes we make a little bit of a oopsie. We're going to go ahead and say we're going to go ahead and define our dialog box and name tag and drag in our inc JSON file. But wait, we don't have any JSON. Let's fix it real quick. I'm going to create a new folder called inc scripts. Go into it and create a new file. So that's right click create inc. I'm going to go ahead and call this YouTube test. Actually, YouTube scene, Uvu, no, YouTube scene, that is actually much better. Just going to go ahead and open it in Unity, I mean in Inky. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the tutorial, but of how to set it up to work with Inky. But this is honestly just done. Anyway, we're just going to go ahead and write a script. Anyway, we're just going to go ahead and write a script. This is going to take some time, so I've gone ahead and fast forwarded it. But if you want to take your time and write your own script, go ahead and pause this video and write something that you like. Now that we have a script, we're just going to drag. We'll have a JSON file that automatically compiles. Just going to drag that into inc JSON file. Hit play, and we should have something that vaguely resembles a visual novel. So here we are in a blue void, just you and me talking. Don't worry, this is only temporary. Well, I mean, what I mean is we all die. We all live and die. I'm gonna go ahead and cut my really crappy voiceover for my character down, and point out that hey, the name tag does not change. We need to fix that, and that is what we're gonna do now. So let's hop right back into our Unity script, and we're going to cover external bindings, external function bindings in inc. So I'm going to go into script reader. If for some reason I decided to go the hard way instead of just going to the taskbar below, but okay. Right, now we are going to go ahead and create a new method, call it change name. And in it, we're going to go ahead and pass a string called name. Now we'll go ahead and say text, this is a string text is equal to name. Now what we just did here is that we went ahead and said, hey, the whatever value you passed in through name, that's text now. Text is name. Pretty self-explanatory, honestly. Next, we're going to go and say name tag dot text is equal to text. Actually, let me change the name of this. Let me call it string name. No, string speaker name. Yes, speaker name sounds a lot better. So string speaker name is equal to name, and just change text to name. And there we go. Name tag dot name is equal to speaker name. It's a lot easier to understand. It's a lot easier to follow, trust me. Now, we need a way to make use of this method because it does nothing right now. Zero references, as you can see. So we're going to go into load story and say underscore story script dot bind external function within brackets and give a name to our function. So in my case, I'm going to call it change name. Actually, you know what? No, let's call it name. Seems easier in the grand scheme of things. Now, we had to define what do we pass through name. So in our case, we just had to say string name. No, let me call something else. String char name. Yeah, that is much better. So what we've done here is that we've defined a binding, we've defined a function, an external function called name with a capital N, and we've defined that hey, we're passing a string through it. So it's going to make a little pointy arrow with the equal and greater than symbol, and bind it to change name. Now, change name, we have to go ahead and make sure that hey, we are passing char name through that. So once we do that, we are pretty much golden. So now we're going to go into Inkscript and define our external function. So what we're going to do is just stay external, make sure external is in all caps, external, and then the name we gave in our script. So in my case, it's not change name, it is name with a capital N. So make sure it's the same thing, name with a capital N, and define what values go in there. So in this case, char name. Doesn't really matter because you don't really have to pass a type in this. Now we're pretty much set up to use this function in the script. So to use external functions, we use two curly brackets to call them. So in our case, we'll go ahead and say two curly brackets, and within that, we're going to go ahead and say name two brackets and the thing we want to pass through. So in this case, it's three question marks. Wait, no, this is not right. Huh. Oh, right, yes, I am missing the two quotation marks. Once you define this, the quotation marks define the value as a string. So we'll be like, oh, cool. Okay, so this is what we're passing through. And a little bit like a few of these lines maybe make the dialogue a bit better. I'm gonna say who am I? Like, who am I? Like it's a question, and then the name tag changes to God. And say, why I'm God, my dear child. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and skip through the next bit. Yeah, I'm not gonna comment over this. Ha ha ha. Now that we're done with that, we're gonna hop back into Unity and let's test it out. Everything seems to be in order. Hit play. Oh, there we go. So when I hit space, it changes it. See, Emperor Palpatine was changed to question marks. It's amazing. So here we are in a blue void, just you and me talking. Why don't worry, this is only temporary. I mean, it is. We all live and die. We all blah blah. You get my over dramatic dialogue. Don't worry about this. Let's move on to your next slide, shall we? Who am I? I'm God. And there we go. With that being said, thank you for watching this tutorial. This is the first part of my visual novel series, and it means a lot that you actually did turn up. So if you did enjoy it, thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.